10 minutes of Torah aside from my main focus. And what I want to talk about today, let's see if I can bring up the section, is the idea of a maxim or a golden rule. So let me share a bit from last night. In studying ethics, Immanuel Kant who died in the early 1800s, proposed the idea of a maxim. A maxim is a sometimes an aphorism, a subjective rule by which you live your life. It's not supposed to be very sophisticated. It's not supposed to be something that's very philosophic, a lofty principle, but a rule by which you live your life. And Kant said, well, how do you know if the rule, the maxim, the subjective guidance by which you live your life, how do you know if it's ethical? So Kant had two criteria, at least two, but I'll just do the two simplest. And if you know this, you know most of the bottom line of Kant's ethical thinking. One is rationality, or rational and non-contradictory. So a great example is of a person who says, I keep my promises unless there's a great advantage in not breaking my promise, and because there's a great advantage, I would break my promise. So Kant says, well, eventually, when you take that all the way down the line, there's nothing called a promise, because a promise is a solemn prediction about future behavior. Now, if you said, well, I predict I will do what I say I will do unless I get a better offer. Well, that would be honest, but it doesn't seem to be entirely moral, but it has honesty going for it. So what Kant recommends we do whenever you have a maxim, you subject it to the rule of non-contradictory, which means, are you proposing a word like a promise, but your maxim actually contradicts the word, and it's better to say an intention or a prediction. The other criterion of Kant is universalizability, meaning, would I will my maxim to be a moral law for all humankind? Now, one thing that Kant brought up is telling the truth, and many people ridicule Kant because they say, what about if you were hiding someone from a criminal? Would you have to tell the truth of where they are? Well, you just have to expand the maxim. You would say, I will tell the truth, except when telling the truth would create great moral harm. That sounds like a pretty good maxim. So we have to, sometimes maxims have to be a little bit sophisticated in order for them to meet the sense of universalizability. Now, what about the so-called golden rule? So the saying of Hillel, I don't think is ever called the golden rule in the Talmud, but I'll read to you where it comes from. If you want to look it up, it's on the Tractate Shabbat 31a in the Talmud, and you can look this up on Safari.com. And there's a full page or so in the Talmud of people coming in asking Hillel questions, all kinds of questions. You know, why do Babylonians have oval heads? And why do Africans have wide feet? There's all kinds of things that they want. They assume that Hillel, is a repository of all knowledge. Now, in one of these stories, a person comes who wants to convert to Judaism, and he comes to Shammai, who's the other competitive law school at the time, and he says, convert me on the condition that you teach the entire Torah while I stand on one foot. Shammai, who was a contractor by trade, had like a T-square, and he whacked him on the, and he said, get out of there, you're ridiculing me, that I can take this entire Torah and teach it on one foot. Well, he comes to Hillel, implicitly asking the same question. And it says the following, very, very dense in Hebrew, Bal lifnei Hillel v'gayireh. And he converted him, apparently being willing to ask his question. And here's what Hillel said, meaning teaching the entire Torah while the prospective convert stands on one foot. Da'alach saneh, what is hateful to you, lechavrach lo ta'aved. Don't do to your chaver, don't do to your neighbor. Zohi kol haTorah kula. That's the entire Torah. Ve'idach perushahu. Everything else is commentary. Zeal, gemor, go and study. Now, it's important for us to, here's a term that I wanted to teach you today. It's called casuistry. There's a few different pronunciations, Casuistry. Casuistry has two almost opposite meanings. On one hand, casuistry implies clever, ultra-sophisticated reasoning that doesn't take you to truth, but rather is a pretension of truth. It's kind of sophistry, pretending to be philosophic. And so when a person engages in a very clever reasoning process, people call it casuistry, C-A-S. There's another more lofty meaning of casuistry in the study of ethics. And in the study of ethics, casuistry means looking at an ethical maxim and finding a principle in the maxim. So you're going from the maxim to the principle, and sometimes from the principle to the maxim. So casuistry means reasoning from the particular to the general, or from the general to the particular. So whenever you hear the word casuistry, right, on one hand, it means sophistry. You're just showing off your sophistication by making ultimately unsound arguments. But when you study ethics, casuistry is a very important term because it means we can derive general rules from specifics and specifics from general rules. So Hillel is giving a general rule, but what are the specifics? The specifics is a prospective convert who comes to Shammai and in a way asks a ridiculous question. Teach me the entire Torah. We're assuming this convert knows that there's the full written Torah, the full body of the Mishnah, a full body of halakhic works, a stupendously large corpus of information and text, and says, teach it me on one foot, which in a way ridicules Shammai's lifelong passion. So he runs him off. He says, don't come to my office and make fun of me. I really get it. So comes to Hillel. Now, I think Hillel's forewarned and realizes this guy's a troublemaker. This guy likes to, likes to, as it were, implicitly ridicule the rabbi by asking the rabbi an impossible question. Summarize the whole thing. Now, during Shavuot, Rabbi Manning and I actually went to a part of the Talmud at the end of Tractate Makot, where that is actually a goal of the end of Tractate Makot, M-A-K-K-O-T, you can go look it up, which is trying to take all of the Torah, reducing it from 613 commandments to 11 commandments to 7, 5, etc. So this is not a bad course of study, but I would say here it was in bad taste. So they have to look at Hillel's answer to him as being case specific. What is hateful to you, don't do to others. What's the specific case? Don't make fun of someone's livelihood. Don't make fun of someone's passion. Don't make fun of someone's values. Something central to someone's life, don't come and ask them a question that tries to poke holes in it. I think that's the Saneh Allah. No one likes that, so don't do it to somebody else. So the specifics of this is what you did to Shammai, even though he's my, oftentimes adversary in legal disputes, he's still, a brilliant jurist, a brilliant a legal mind. That wasn't right what you did. Okay, he said, this is the entire Torah. Now, in a way, he's looking at the guy and said something like this. This is Finley's interpretation. This is the entire Torah for you. For you, this is the entire Torah. So what I'm saying is for each one of us here, there's a different statement of what is the entire Torah. So sometimes your entire Torah would be regulate your emotions. Another person's entire Torah would be stand up for yourself, draw boundaries. Another person's entire Torah would be, if you want to know God, engage in study. So I think depending on the person's question, you could say, Zot Torah Kula, this is the entire Torah, which means for you, it comes down to this point right here. And then Hillel adds to it, everything else is commentary, which means whatever Torah you need to know today, everything else is commentary, which means eventually you'll get to, this is in my mind, you'll get to everything. And then here's the clincher. Zil Gemor. Zil is Aramaic for go. And Gemor, which in Hebrew sounds like finish, but actually in Aramaic, lemigmar means to learn, lilmod. So like Gemara, the Gemara means the learning. Zil Gemor says, now go and study. Okay. Yeah, so what he's saying is, Masasane Allah, what's hateful to you? And the commentaries say, if you look at Torah Mishpatim, if you look at civil law is basically about, fairness and reciprocity. And there's a great teaching there. So I don't want to say this is not a great teaching. It's a great starting place in ethical thinking. It's a wonderful starting place in ethical thinking. If I don't like it done to me, sanai alai, done to me, don't do it to other people. The problem is, it's not total enough to, I would say, to satisfy Kant's maxim that eventually it does not rise to a contradiction. For example, I gave the example last night. Someone might, sorry, I live in Israel, so I went to an extreme example. Someone pulls a gun on me, I don't like it. That doesn't mean I can't pull a gun on them right back. Okay, so you could say, yeah, and sometimes people say, well, Israel doesn't like being attacked, so isn't it wrong for them to attack back? Isn't attacking wrong? Yeah, if you're simplistic, right? I mean, if you're simple-minded, it sounds like it. However, it's two different cases. One is the unprovoked attack on innocence, and then there's the provoked attack on the guilty, on the responsible. So you have to really, really take that Hillel's phrase out of the particular and extract it to a general principle. This is casuistry. And then take the general principle and try to bring it down to another case. So it's okay to call that the golden rule. I would say it's a maxim. It's a well-known maxim. I think it's brilliantly case specific to that one person who is ridiculing, in my mind, ridiculing Shammai. I think Hillel was prepared. If you have some character flaw and you come to somebody and says, hey, what's the entire Torah? And they look at you and said, don't make fun of people. That's the whole Torah. You'd go, oh no, I've been exposed. I've been seen. And they say, everything else is commentary. For you, start there. Now go study the whole thing. Now, I think that's a wonderful, wonderful, literary gem from which we should then go to a principle and then come down to particulars.